Welcome back to Untethered Minds.
Welcome.
Welcome. Man, do we have a show for you today? We did a little bit of digging. Just a little bit.
A lot of it.
Been up for 3 nights with no sleep. Coffee. No, I'm just kidding.
He doesn't even drink coffee, which is the funny part about that. Gives him a tummy ache.
It puts me out, man.
Yeah, and it makes your tummy upset.
Yeah, I drink coffee. I'm out.
Yeah. I'm the coffee drinker.
No.
Well, hello.
I'm high on life. You know?
That's the only thing you're high on.
It's January 6th, 2025. We just witnessed Kamala Harris having to swear in the landslide victory for Donald Trump and watch a standing ovation for that to her face. It was beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, and the funniest thing, too, was last time we had a January 6th, people were, doing their protesting out front. And this year, they were doing a snowball fight. A bunch of people. It was just such a difference in energy, I think. Yeah. Well, and,
nice. There's still people that are like, you still believe 2020 was stolen. Look at the numbers.
Because it was.
Look at the numbers.
Yeah. And everybody was so calm and happy this time because we got this outcome that we all voted for.
Yeah. So,
actually,
Donald Trump won 3 times in a row.
Mm-hmm. They don't have to believe it. We know it. End of story. And today...
But, in retrospect, no matter how horrible the last 4 years have been, economically, all these wars, socially, all this stuff, Trump needed a reboot.
Yeah.
Because he was stuck with Pence. He was stuck with the Congress and the Senate that he had at the time. And so he needed, in a sense, to lose to be able to build this super team that he has now.
Right. Well, and the last 4 years woke a lot of people up.
Right.
So now we're all the stronger for it. And we know.
And there's still people asleep.
Still.
That blows my mind.
I know. Which is actually something we're talking about today. We're calling this the first Psyop of 2025.
Yep.
Because we're not even a week into the new year.
Oh, it started on day one.
Day one. It's at Trump Tower. Is that one of them?
Trump Tower, yeah.
Trump Tower in Vegas. There was a Cybertruck pulled in front of the hotel, and I don't know how long it took afterwards, but there was essentially an explosion after it was pulled up in front of the hotel. And there have been so many weird details about all of this. Mm-hmm. So many weird ones. And I think we're seeing a lot of information we want to trust right now from sources that we normally trust, but it goes a lot deeper than what we're seeing. And so that's what we're talking about today because, this one has been heavy on us for a few days now. And I feel like we finally came to a conclusion for what info we have at this point.
For what we have right now. Yeah.
Obviously
there's going to be more details that come out, but we think we got a pretty good idea of what's going on right now based on what's been provided.
We have our untethered
result.
Yeah, because we kind of wait on things like Tavis was saying earlier. We're probably never going to be the ones breaking the news right away.
Yeah, we'll never be those people.
Because we like to collect a little more information and come to our own conclusions before sharing them. Because we want to add to the conversation, not just spew the same things everybody else is talking about. Yeah. So,
anyone can see a headline and then make a little video of it real quick.
Absolutely.
But not everyone gives a different perspective or maybe a more detailed look into the details like everyone does. Or not everyone does. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to gather as much of the information as we can, and that way we can spread it as far and wide as we can so the real truth gets out there. I'm not claiming that we're always going to have all the answers, but we won't ever deliver anything unless we're pretty damn certain.
We're just thinking critically here in a way that maybe you haven't seen so far. So come along with us as we dive down this rabbit hole.
This is our deep dive into the Cybertruck.
First deep dive of the year. I know we just released an episode, but this had to be talked about. So what we know as of right now was obviously this took place on January 1st, 2025. Happy New Year, everybody.
Fireworks and all.
Yeah. So this occurred, like we said, outside of Trump's hotel in Vegas. And the person that they found in the truck was dead of a gunshot wound to the head. But the person's passport and ID were found unburned in the truck, despite the freaking explosion, which always happens. It's like the passport that fell from the Twin Towers from one of the...
Multiple passports. Yeah. They found multiple passports from the towers.
Remember all of this
Everything
kind of
else
stuff.
burned, but the passports.
Yeah.
They should have just built those buildings out of passports. Everything would have been fine.
That's horrible, but it's so true. And like, observe patterns, you guys, because this is a pattern. So they figured out it is supposedly a man named Matthew Livelsberger who did this. He was an active duty Green Beret who was mostly stationed in Germany and Colorado. And the weird thing about it is people who know him in the Green Beret community are not convinced that this is something he would do.
Right.
And he was even on a reality TV show on the History Channel back in 2013 called Ultimate Soldier Challenge. So why him? I don't know.
I didn't have a response for you.
Basically, what it's come out to is that Matthew was trying to be a whistleblower. And he shot himself before the explosion, apparently, with what they call a Desert Eagle. I'm not familiar, but it's basically like the most powerful handgun you can buy.
Yeah, it is.
So he shot himself. It fell between his legs or between his feet on the floor of the Tesla truck.
Yeah.
Under him.
No, that gun would have went flying backwards.
It's so powerful.
Yeah.
It's that doesn't make any sense in
that
itself.
gun has a kick to it.
And there was no report of a gunshot in the car by anybody when it happened, which again, it's this powerful. How is there no reporting on that happening? So this is all kind of like the initial chatter that we're hearing, and things aren't really starting to line up. So then we all have questions about the Tesla, because while the Cybertrucks can go on autopilot, they can drive themselves, they do require the person in the driver's seat to be looking up. So you can't be taking a nap, you can't be texting, you can't really be like not paying attention to what's happening in front of you. So if this body in the Cybertruck was dead before it got to the hotel, it would have had to be sitting in that driver's seat with its eyes open as well, which is just an interesting detail.
Yeah.
Because that's what we know about those Cybertrucks.
Well, like I said, I mean, unless there's a way to override that feature, because the original self-driving didn't require that.
Yeah.
Because there's tons of videos like people asleep behind the wheel of a Tesla while it's driving down the freeway.
Yeah, maybe that was more beta stuff, but
Well, I mean, it was years ago.
Right. I have a hard time believing that they would be able to approve that technology to go on the road. People closing their eyes and not paying attention, because you still have to be there in case something happens.
I mean,
you have to be alert.
Sort of, but then you have like the Waymo cars.
That's true.
You know what I mean? There's no one in the driver's seat for those.
That's true. Okay, so look into that further. I don't know. I don't own a Cybertruck personally. So that was fishy. And then they also found that the remains of the person in the front seat burned beyond recognition. So they're not going to be able to look at him and be able to tell by his facial features who he is.
Of course.
Right. That's how it always goes. But they did take some DNA, and it happens to not match his son's DNA.
Yeah.
And so they are trying to spin that in the way that he found out that his son isn't actually his son and was breaking up with his wife, girlfriend, who, his son's mother. And that's why he did this. But other theories are that it's not actually his body in that truck.
Right.
It's somebody else. And of course they had to leave the ID available to view, because that's how they're linking, who they're linking it to. So this happens. And then they were also reporting that because he was living in Colorado and that's where he bought this gun, it would have taken him 3 days just to purchase the handgun because of the process of buying guns in Colorado. So the timeline, all of this really doesn't make sense. That's coming from the official reports, due to the fact that Shawn Ryan had somebody on his show, and this is where things got a little crazy. Shawn Ryan has a show where he really interviews a lot of like ex-army personnel, special forces, CIA, all kinds of different people.
People with clearance.
Yeah, people who are whistleblowers, who have worked in the government for years and years. That's the whole basis of his show. He is he's a former Green Beret himself. No, Navy. That's what it was.
What is it?
Yeah,
SEAL?
but then...
SEAL?
I don't remember. Navy SEAL? Yeah, I think maybe. Anyway, you guys can look up exactly Shawn Ryan's bio. That is not my job. But so he was former, and then he had on this man called Sam Shoemate, who is currently still active. And this guy, Sam, has a big platform online where he is basically telling stories of other people involved in the military, being like a whistleblower for things that are going on in the United States military that aren't really widely talked about. And so he is claiming that, is it the day before? Yeah, the day before this bombing, he received an email from the apparent bomber, Matthew Livelsberger. The email reads, "In case I do not make it to my decision point or onto the Mexico border, I am sending this now. Please do not release this until 1 January and keep my identity private until then. First off, I am not under duress or hostile influence or control. My first car was a 2006 black Ford Mustang V6 for verification. What we have been seeing with drones is the operational use of gravitic propulsion systems, powered aircraft by most recently China in the East Coast, but throughout history the US. Only we in China have this capability. Our ops and location for this activity in the box is below. China has been launching them from the Atlantic from submarines for years, but this activity recently has picked up. As of now, it is just a show of force, and they are using it similar to how they use the balloon for SIGINT and ISR, which are also part of the integrated comms system. There are dozens of those balloons in the air at any given time. The so what is because of the speed and the stealth of these unmanned AC. They are the most dangerous threat to national security that has ever existed. They basically have an unlimited payload capacity and can park it over the White House if they wanted. It's checkmate. USG needs to give the history of this, how we are employing it and weaponizing it, how China is employing them, and what that way forward is. China is poised to attack anywhere in the East Coast. I've been followed for over a week now from likely Homeland or FBI, and they are looking to move on me and are unlikely going to let me cross into Mexico, but won't because they know I am armed and have a massive VBID. I've been trying to maintain a very visible profile and have kept my phone, and they are definitely digitally tracking me. I have knowledge of this program and also war crimes that were covered up during airstrikes in Nimruz province, Afghanistan in 2019 by the admin, DOD, DEA, and CIA. I conducted targeting for these airstrikes of over 125 buildings. 65 were struck because of CIVCAS. That killed hundreds of civilians in a single day. U.S. FORA continued strikes after spotting civilians on initial ISR. It was supposed to take 6 minutes and scramble all aircraft and CENTCOM. The UN basically called these war crimes, but the administration made them disappear. I was part of that cover-up with U.S. FORA and Agent Redacted of the DEA. So I don't know if my abduction attempt is related to either. I worked with Jen Miller's IO staff on this, as well as a response to Bala Murghab. AOBS commander at the time, Redacted, can validate this. You need to elevate this to the media so we avoid a world war because this is a mutually assured destruction situation. For vetting, my LinkedIn is Matt Berg or Matthew Livelsberger, in active duty 18Z out of 110. My profile is public. I have an active TSSCI with UAP USAP access. He received the email that basically he's blowing the whistle on technology that the United States and China has. Mm-hmm. So when we were seeing drones in the sky a couple weeks ago...
Anti-gravitic propulsions.
Yeah. He's saying that those are part of technology only our two countries have, and that basically the entire East Coast is set up at this point to be taken over by China's drones, and that these things have the power to be completely unseen, really stealthy, really fast, and that essentially they could put one over the White House and we would have no idea and take out the entire building and everybody in it.
Right.
So they're basically saying this is a huge threat and it could lead to a mutually assured destruction kind of war between us. So now he's trying to blow the whistle, saying that China has these and basically war is coming. And it's almost like it's trying to give us incentive to back the war.
Go to war with
It's
China,
like 9/11. We were all like, yeah, let's go get Iraq because they just did this to us. How dare they? We all got behind it.
Yeah.
And from what we're feeling like, this is another kind of one of those psyops. So this email comes out and they actually show it on the screen during the Shawn Ryan Show. And everything he's saying in it is like, it's crazy. But when they're reading the email and they're showing it on screen, there's a couple red flags. One is that you can see certain words have that little like red squiggly under them, meaning like there's a spelling or grammar error there, which is odd because you don't see that unless it's your side and you're writing the email. And then there's also a spot where you can see the cursor. And again, unless you're writing the email, why is there a cursor on it?
Right.
Little odd. He's also talking about he was getting messages from this guy, Shoemate, was getting these messages from Matthew on Instagram under an account that was saying like, delete this as soon as you have responded and sent me an email. And so now he's saying, well, yeah, I had the Instagram message, but he said to delete it, so I did. So I can't even tell you what account it came from anymore. And I found that a little suspicious. Yeah. Like, I get it, but at the same time, it's just, it doesn't help the situation going on. So that happens. He sends the email. He was basically just begging Sam Shoemate to get this information out, get it out to Rogan, get it out to Shawn Ryan, get it out to
essentially anyone.
What's his name? Who just got nominated? Seth Hegsberger. Hegseth. Pete Hegseth. That's who it is.
No clue.
He's just pleading this man to get the story out because he wants us to understand the threat that's coming towards America through the use of these drones, basically. He also makes it apparent in the email that he wants to escape to Mexico, and he wanted to meet actually Shawn Ryan, because he'd also sent him an email. He said he was going through Flagstaff because on his way to Mexico. That's what it was, because he was trying to escape to Mexico. So again, the day before he does all this bombing, he says he's going to Mexico. He doesn't want to die. He's just trying to escape because the feds were apparently after him. He had the FBI on his tail. He knew that he was being watched, and he thought bad things are happening, so I'm escaping to Mexico.
Right.
But then turns around and goes up to Vegas instead and basically has a suicide mission, which doesn't really make sense. So I guess on his way to Vegas,
bring awareness to this technology.
Right. So on his way to Vegas, he stops in Kingman, Arizona to charge the truck. Now, the FBI says that he had stopped in Vegas to charge the truck. But when you see this footage from the Tesla, it's showing there's like a Carl's Jr. next door to the charging station he was at. And when you look into it, a bunch of internet sleuths found out that that's actually a station in Arizona, not in Vegas. So that was yet another lie that came out from the FBI on this. Another thing in this email that is not matching up is the fact that he put in verification, different factors saying like, this is who I am, look into this, and it'll prove that I am who I say I am. And that stuff doesn't match up, which is the weirdest part. He mentions his first car, what he had. The year isn't right, and like the year's pretty far off. And then people said, well, maybe it was registered to his parents because most people's first cars are.
Right.
And that doesn't match either. So you can't verify him on that. Another weird occurrence about this whole thing is that the Tesla is like one of the hardest trucks, well, probably the hardest vehicle to damage, right? It's
aside
bulletproof.
From like a Hummer, yeah.
Yeah, it's bulletproof. We've seen Joe Rogan try to put an arrow in it. Yeah. So he clearly wasn't trying to hurt anybody. He wasn't trying to like massively destruct anything. He's just trying to make a point. But then you look at his experience and the fact that he's a Green Beret and you think, why would he fill this car with fireworks? Why not make a bomb?
Well, he said
he knows how to do
make
this.
A spectacle.
Right.
He didn't want to kill anybody.
Yeah. It's still the
and
fact
that's what he said in the email.
Yeah. And then they found other manifestos, apparently the FBI, that's talking about how he thinks every military active and former, should be going out and taking the Capitol out. They have to shut down the highways, use force if they have to. basically kind of painting him to be like a crazy person. There's another email where he's just calling out like every single lie and every bad thing the government's doing to us. And like all of it's true, but it's trying to make him look like a crazy person.
Trying to make him look like a crazy person and throw all that in there to make it seem like if you believe that stuff, you're a crazy person too.
And he's like, I'm so glad that Trump won. We'll finally get back to some normalcy here. Right. He was kind of looking forward to things too. So again, it's just confusing as to why he would have killed himself the way he did. Especially with that gun. That's like very aggressive. Very over the top to do that in a truck.
But then the bomb goes off after he...
Yeah.
shoots himself.
It doesn't make any sense at all. We're seeing a lot of Green Beret chatter on YouTube and X who don't believe this. They're saying that he didn't have the expertise to speak about this technology. He didn't work on these drones like the email said he did, and that he wasn't actually in the areas that the email claimed he was. So people are asking a lot of questions about this email now, not really trusting Sam Shoemate and Shawn Ryan on it, and it's not like I feel like they're telling the wrong story on purpose. I think they're just like two people who have gotten wrapped up into this now on purpose. Because...
Well, it's like we were talking. What if those that run everything figured out that people that use their brains don't watch mainstream news anymore?
Yeah.
And so now they're infiltrating the independent media to get all of us to buy into it.
Yep.
Because those were trusted sources, because mainstream isn't. Yeah. And so, knowingly or not knowingly, there's a lot of fishy things with that episode.
Yeah, well, that's a crazy thing is like they're trying to reverse Psyop us now.
Yeah.
It's like the call is coming from inside the house.
Yeah.
And I do not think that there is any ill intent behind Shoemate or Shawn Ryan. I think that they have just been given this information and they are talking about it to the best of their abilities based on what they have.
Well, this is literally what they do.
Yeah,
exactly. They blow the whistle on things and stuff like that. I mean, and they could still be like insiders and they could have just given us real information for years to earn our trust just to flip the script.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's a long-term psyop.
Yeah.
I'm not claiming that's what they're doing, but if you know us, nothing's ever off the table.
Right. Right. And so it's kind of freaky, but if you really think one step ahead of it, the people who want to remain in power, who are running the show and don't want us to know anything, are going to figure out our patterns, how we work. And if they realize that we don't tune into mainstream media, they have to find a way to infiltrate this decentralized, these like platforms basically that we have become so trusting of.
Right.
And we can't. We always have to keep our guard up. So regardless if any of this is true, it is very important to think about the possibility of it actually being true.
Just use the same line of thinking that you use with mainstream media. Take everything with a grain of salt. Verify the information. Trust but verify. The whole blindly listening and blindly believing people is what got us all in this mess in the first place.
Yeah.
There's too many people that do that. And I think a lot of us at times get a little too comfortable with our trusted sources and just kind of take everything for face value.
Yeah.
But things like this, we got to be willing to call out.
Absolutely. Well, and I know we first watched that interview a couple nights ago, and I even talked with some people I know about it, and I'm fully like, this is happening. China has this. It's game over. And then the day afterwards, I was riding my bike, and I'm thinking, what if this isn't at all what they want it to seem like, because after watching the episode, we're like, this is terrifying. We have to defend ourselves against China now. Look what they're doing. This is like going to be all out World War III. But that's what they want you to think, because the military industrial complex is going to do anything and everything they can to get you to support the wars that are going to fund everything they do. It always goes back to the military industrial complex.
Well, and here's one thing that I don't think makes up too much sense with that whole China has this technology and they're ready to take out the entire East Coast. Yeah. Geographically, the West Coast would be a better, easier, closer target than the East.
Yeah.
So you're sitting there saying they went all the way around the world the other side?
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
Because China's right below Russia.
Yeah.
And Russia and Alaska touch.
Right.
Essentially.
Right.
Especially when it gets frozen.
Yeah.
It's
crazy fact.
But
right.
it would make more sense for them to say, oh, they're going to blow up the whole West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
But the East Coast, they'd have to go past our allies or past us to get to the East Coast side.
Yeah.
And I get, like, if they have this technology, which I have no doubt in my mind they do, you know, and it wouldn't surprise me if we're the only ones that have it, us and China. Like I said earlier, I think Russia might be up there or whatever. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, if you know anything about this type of technology, it's been in the works since, like, the 40s, the 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
You know, almost 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's nothing new. They have all these patents and stuff on it that we'll go over later, but it's just there's a lot that doesn't make sense with what they're saying in it.
No. And I think it explains the drones in a way that, again, will scare us and get us into believing what they want us.
I think the drones are ours. Which is why they're saying don't shoot them down, because they're expensive military equipment.
Right. So let's get into that, because there is so much online, so much about these things being real. Here you go. I'm just going to give you the pad. Take the iPad. I don't know how to use.
What do you want me to look up first?
Yeah. I mean, you've been doing some research into these.
Yeah. So this is a patent that came out back in 2006.
Oh, wow.
And it's essentially an application for a spacecraft having a triangle hull with a vertical electrostatic line charge on each corner that produces a horizontal electric field parallel to the side of the hull. The field interacting with a plane wave emitted by antennas on the side of the hull generates a force per volume combining both lift and propulsion. So this is something that they've literally have a patent on dating back
20 years.
Dating back to 2006.
Wow.
If you know anything about Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, they've been creating that Tic Tac UFO that people see. They've been creating that since the 60s. So we've had this technology. Multiple reasons why I think that they haven't given it to us. First of all, the oil industry and everything else.
Rubber, asphalt.
There's too many industries that will be completely dismantled if this technology is available to society. Another reason is Project Bluebeam. I think they're going to fake the second coming. And I think they're going to fake the rapture and say that everyone was abducted by aliens and, you know, take control of people that way.
Well, and again, they were just talking about UFOs coming out of the water.
Well, so and here's the thing. Well, yeah, you cast demons out into the ocean.
They're setting it up.
But another thing, I think the reason they're keeping it out too is if those two things aren't why they're doing it, it's to create a false alien invasion for the purpose of control. It might not be the rapture, but I mean, look at 9/11. Look how much all of us are just like, yeah, government, do whatever you got to do. Go kill people.
Yep.
You know? Yep. And now it would be kind of the same thing. Oh, yeah, government, do whatever you got to do. Keep us safe from aliens.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
And so you have to create an existential crisis to be the savior for.
Right. And people aren't afraid of Trump anymore, so they're going to have to bring out the big guns soon enough.
Right. And
a pandemic won't do it.
We still have 2 weeks until he's sworn in.
Don't remind me. So scary.
But as soon as he's sworn in, though, I wouldn't say we're golden in a sense, because there's still so much that can happen, right?
Yeah.
And as big of Trump fans as we are, we'll be the first ones to call out any crap that he does that we 100%. Don't agree with, you know. But even if they take Trump out after he's sworn in, well, now we have the cabinet we want. Now we have all the pieces in place, you know. And so they've already tried doing everything they can to take him out. And it'll be real interesting how much of this stuff is actually released to the public if Kash Patel is certified as the FBI director.
Makes me giddy to think about.
Yeah, if he becomes the FBI director, I am so curious as to everything.
I will hang on every word that comes out of that man's mouth.
And I'm going to be sitting there, I told you so,
I
told you so, I told you so. So that's if you want to look up the patent for that, it's publishing number US 2006 014519 A1, as in A1 steak sauce.
Yum.
Sponsorship. And now you can see this spacecraft or aircraft, whatever you want to call it, actual pictures of it. Just look up TR-3B. That's what they call it now, TR-3B. It's a U.S. Air Force top secret nuclear-powered flying triangle. And this thing looks futuristic. Like it does. It looks like it's all made out of all carbon fiber. It's actually pretty cool looking.
So they have harnessed nuclear energy.
Yeah. So,
which could save the whole fossil fuel argument, right?
I've seen a few documentaries over the years of people talking about the technology that they have. Mm-hmm. And it's 50, 60 years down the future of anything we can imagine. Yep. And the only reason that they are not giving it to the public, because it would solve so many of the world's problems if we use this on a worldwide basis. Mm-hmm. But the reason they're not doing it is because they want to keep the financial slave system in place that it is right now and keep everyone working towards the same things, and essentially a mundane cycle of doing the same things over and over and over again, and nothing ever changing. And then constantly creating more issues, and then you create all these little radicalized groups outside that go out and protest all these things that are usually have paid agitators in that group that are paid by the people that are doing all the bad stuff that they're protesting.
And then we're all agitated anyways because we're working day in and day out, and we're paying
and then
bills.
We keep fighting amongst each other.
Yeah.
And so the technology...
It's because life is wearing us down.
Right.
So of course we're pissed off and we're going to fight each other over stupid things like race and sexual orientation. Like, we're all so tired.
I identify as a goat.
Yeah. Jeez. But let's take that energy and point it where it needs to go. And it's these... people running our world. So,
I mean, that's kind of just what I know about that, because all this space stuff has always interests me. Even as a kid, like, I was fascinated with space. I always looked up a lot at night. And I've gone down a lot of rabbit holes, and just from what I know, from the things that I've seen over the years, the United States has had at least the technology that we have now for about 25, 30 years, since the 90s. You remember the Phoenix Lights, right? And that was like 96, something like that, 97. Those were the triangle things right here.
They're testing them out.
I got a patent for it, right?
I mean, how far are we from places like Area 51?
Right.
There's a lot of that out here in the Southwest.
Yeah.
Lots of just desert that goes on for days, and I'm sure a lot of bases.
Arizona's weird anyway, because like the Grand Canyon, all the weird stuff in the Grand Canyon, they don't let you go see.
We need to do a Grand Canyon episode too.
Yeah. Well, it's just anywhere there's lots of land and desert, there's always weird stuff going on out there.
Yeah. The whole, like, the four corners, those 4 states out here is wild stuff. We were just even looking at, like, Monument Valley, Valley of the Gods, all those kind of areas, Horseshoe Bend in Utah, in Colorado, and it's just
There's, like, a lot of history that are not exactly telling us what happened.
Antelope Canyon's weird, yeah.
So my thought is, as far as all that kind of stuff, is the world is reset multiple times. I think those that run the world take it to a certain point each time and then crash the system and start all over. And then it rebuilds and goes all over again. And I think we're at that point where they wanted to do another great reset. But
I think we're at the...
Well, they have to have nuclear war for that to happen.
I think we're getting towards the end of the Bible, though.
Oh, yeah. We're definitely in Revelation. Well, and here's the thing, too. Here's a misconception. When people are like, well, we're in the end times, you're thinking like every day something's going to happen. Not necessarily. Because one day is 1,000 years to God, right? Exactly. So because we're in the end times, I mean, that could be tomorrow. that could be 1,000 years from
Right.
now. And so we have no concept of time in that aspect. I do believe, though, that we are in the end times, because if you look at it, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in Revelation that is playing out right now before our eyes. So.
Well, and I saw the craziest video recently, and this explains so much. We always talk about, we're quote unquote flat earthers. We really just believe in the firmament as it's laid out in the Bible. What the first page?
Yes, it's literally the first page.
Saying as above, so below. So basically that there's like a dome above us, right? That we're like almost in a fishbowl. Yeah. And there's water
it's more
above.
like a snow globe.
Yeah. But water below as well. And what I was hearing somebody saying was that in order to create a star, there has to be this like violent separation of water, splitting of water, that creates a vacuum.
Yeah.
And basically what they're saying is that, us being created here on this earth was that creation where he ripped apart water, which is now made it so that there's water above and water below us, and that we are now living in this vacuum inside. Mm-hmm. And that to me was even more like firmament, boom, yes. Right. Which is why we don't support the UFO, other galaxy beings. We don't support that argument.
Well, and to say that we are just one of many life forms in the endless sea of galaxies and all that stuff, it's to take away the importance of us in our lives here on Earth.
To take away God's position.
Right. So
his importance.
If we are just here because of evolution and the Big Bang and all that, then that completely takes away how valuable we are as individuals. Yeah. Our whole experience on here is to be tested. Mm-hmm. How do we overcome those tests? And do we still try to stay righteous in the hardest times? Yeah. I'll be the first to admit, like, I do not take the righteous route a lot. Yeah. But it's having the knowledge of who our Creator is and our purpose of being here. Mm-hmm. Our purpose is to worship God. Like, that's the whole point. And I know that for a non-believer, that may sound a little like, oh, that's narcissistic. God just wants you to worship him. Well, think about it from a parent's perspective, right? You have all these kids. You just want your kids to love you. Mm-hmm. That's it. Mm-hmm. You just want them to show you respect, to honor you, and to love you. Yeah. That's all you want. And there's too many of his kids out there acting a fool right now.
Right. Well, and like at the heart of it, I always see religion and like having a relationship with God in that every day I'm trying to be better. And it's just in accordance with what he wants. Because when you look at it, it is a very like simple and true and kind way to live your life. And if every day I can say, please forgive me for this sin, please forgive me for this thing that I did in my worldly human body, you're putting that hope and belief in Jesus even more. And there's nothing wrong with saying, I have been a sinner, I have done these things, because you're copping to it. You're, taking accountability for your actions and you're asking for that forgiveness. And God will give that to you if you just submit. And so it's more of just a way of living life as opposed to like some strict book of rules or whatever people like to see it as.
What a lot of people misunderstand is, in order to be quote unquote religious or whatever, then you have to go to church all the time. You have to be involved in all these things. You just have to have a relationship with God. Yeah. Like, that's it. That's all it boils down to. Yeah. It's just having that relationship with God, talking to him every day. And not always, a lot of people don't pray unless they need something, right? Like, please, Lord, da-da-da-da, right? Yeah, but you also have to give thanks. You also have to be humble. You have to have that sense of servitude to be able to approach those prayers in a proper manner, as opposed to just, do
this for me. It genuinely takes a lot of faith. And the things that I have cut out and tried to be better at for the sake of being a Christian have only been things that have bettered life. Right. So it's like there really is no negative trade-off for these things. And I just wish people saw that more. Yeah. Because it is just kind of like a formula for success as opposed to being some rigid, strict religion.
Yeah. And we're not telling you to be like that Brian Johnson guy. My body is my temple.
Don't die. Don't die. That was such a weird documentary.
That dude is weird.
The man wants to marry his son.
Yeah.
It's really, really odd.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now that we've gotten on to God talk.
Maybe it's not he wants to marry his son. Maybe he just wants all of his son's organs. Maybe he's just looking at him like, you're my salvation.
Yeah.
You know?
In 20 years.
Yeah.
When he needs new transplants and everything.
I'm going to decapitate you and take all your stuff.
Yeah, no, the whole thing was so weird.
Yeah.
It gives me the heebie-jeebies.
The guy looked robotic for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyways, question everything always, especially in this case. Yeah. I feel like there's going to be a lot of shenanigans going on the next few days, few weeks, few months.
For sure.
So keep your eyes open. This is just one of those examples of like everything's not as it seems. Even when the good people that you trust are coming out and talking about it, question it. Man. Question what we're saying. Go.
Yeah, I mean, take what we say for face value. Go look it up.
This is just an added perspective, but you have to realize that like every time we are being given sob stories to have positive feelings for going to war because we need to go kick some ass and show the Chinese what's up. No. Yeah, they want you to feel that. They want you to support their actions, but like we don't do war. We're done. Like enough is enough.
If they want war, just wait like 20 years when it's all done with robots and drones anyway.
Yeah.
There's like no actual human casualties anymore.
Right. And it's not just war for going to what are the words I'm trying to say? For the sake of going to war, it's never just that. It's about the money that's being laundered back to the people in power. It's about the people controlling the world having a better way to control us because we're now living in fear of what's to come. It's just all fear-mongering and warmongering, and just don't.
Yeah. The people
don't be
spoken.
Fooled. Yeah.
We don't want war.
We're done. They've been doing this to us our entire lives.
Mm-hmm.
And we finally have a president who can help it come to an end. So let's do it. Enough is enough. So that is our unfiltered opinions about what's going on with Matthew Livelsberger.
Yeah.
The Shoemake guy, the Shawn Ryan Show, World War III, drones.
Yeah.
In the last episode, we're like, we don't really know what the drones are. Now we know.
Yeah. One thing I want to touch base on is New Orleans.
Oh, yes.
It's just very peculiar that the Assistant Attorney General...
So what happened in New Orleans?
Okay.
If people don't know.
People should know.
Well, I don't know.
It's all right. So the guy from Houston who also served at Fort Bragg. So the whole thing with Fort Bragg...
Because Matthew Livelsberger supposedly also...
he was there as well. The whole thing with Fort Bragg is, yes, they both went there. Yes, there was experiments with MK Ultra back in the day. But, like, you're talking about damn near 70% of the Army going through Fort Bragg.
Yeah.
So, like, that's a wide net.
Well, and the guy who... This is a man who apparently drove his car into a crowd of people in New Orleans and then just started shooting, right? Born and raised in America, was doing real estate in Houston, and then this happened.
Yeah, with an ISIS flag on the back.
Yeah.
Yeah, which doesn't make sense.
No. So that's all that happened. No.
But then a couple of days later, the district attorney for New Orleans ends up dead from apparent suicide, gunshot wound to the head.
Mm-hmm. Kind of odd.
I'm not saying... coincidences around these types of things happen often, but they happen often enough for them to not be coincidences.
Exactly. We were even just talking about the fact that Vegas has always been really sketchy because even with like the Vegas shooting at the country festival, which we do need to talk about too, but we couldn't trust the Vegas police on that. No. Everything was very sketchy, and then that police chief ended up going to Maui, and he was in charge
2 weeks before.
2 weeks before the fires broke out in Maui, which if y'all haven't listened, we have a whole thing on that if you go back to last year.
And DEWs with Spencer too.
Yep. So coincidences, air quotations, coincidences.
It's a lot of evil people doing a lot of evil things.
Yeah.
And I get it. Like, we were watching that one interview the other day, but they were saying, sometimes the government allows certain things to happen in order to do certain things. And I get it. I get it. But why? Why are you allowing American citizens to die when your whole purpose is to protect American citizens?
Because they don't actually care.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
But that's why they have to all be taken away.
Exactly.
And held
Well,
for
because even somebody was talking about Pearl Harbor. Not that they had a hand in it, but it's very well known that they knew it was coming. Sure. Yeah, and they didn't stop it.
Yeah, they 100% let it happen.
Because, again, it got us involved in a way that they weren't able to before.
Yeah, because the American people were not about World War II.
No.
At that point, because everyone here was basically looking at it as, well, that's Europe's fight. Let them fight it. We'll supply them like we pretty much do every single war.
Yeah.
But we'll supply them and all that stuff, but we're not getting involved. Japan essentially said, give us back our oil or we're going to retaliate. He didn't respond. And they attacked. And they were informed, not Japan informed them, but our intelligence was informed that the attack was coming.
Yeah.
They knew 100% that attack was coming. Yeah. And he let it happen to get us involved in World War II, which completely turned the tide of the war.
Yeah.
Because Hitler was winning.
Yeah.
Like, he was.
Yeah. I just always wonder, like, when was the first instance of corruption within our government? Like, who was the first?
The first instance?
What was that instance? Yeah. Because
the very first instance?
Yeah.
I mean, you're probably talking about the very first year we had a government. Like, there's always going to be corruption.
Right.
There's always going to be some sneaky little bastard trying to do something.
And it almost feels like nowadays, like, the more that I don't know, personally, I'm seeing a lot more online and whatnot of people who are more in touch with their spirituality again. And I kind of see a resurgence of Christianity and whatnot kind of coming around. And it's almost like when those vibrations and whatnot get bigger and better, evil has to hit us harder.
Right.
They're going to try to come at us at more angles, try to deceive us more, try to trick us more. And that's just the way it is because we are in this kind of purgatory here on earth. And I think we have to be so strong because our faith is going to be tested so much in the next few years. If it hasn't already been. It's coming.
I don't think millennials are going to ever be surprised by anything that happens.
No. We've talked about this. Like, how much have we been through?
Our whole life has been a historical event.
It's all been a freaking lie. It's all been conspiracy. Oh my gosh. And I just think that so many people are opening their eyes now. I mean, people who are looking into the different projects and whatnot. You know, MK Ultra, Project Bluebeam. What were the other ones? You were listing them off last night. You know, people are starting to look into it more.
Agenda 2030.
Yeah. And it's all out there. And I'm like, is that the moment that they hit the reset button when all of us have come to terms with what's actually happening? We all see the light?
No. And they're trying to do it while they still have stupid people demanding things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because, like, they need the brainless masses to vote for the stuff that they're wanting to push because it has to look legit.
Yeah, right.
So even though they'll pack the courts, they'll pack whatever, they'll do everything they can to tilt everything in their favor, they still need the appearance.
Right. That people believe in them.
Right, because if the people they rule see them for who they are, all of them do, they don't stand a chance.
No.
So they have to have the mindless pawns that they move around at free will.
And they've brainwashed, as we see every day on socials. And it's always the people who are least educated who are the loudest. So remember that.
Well, I'm glad you said the educated word. Because liberals, for whatever reason, believe that education equals intelligence.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
No. And what kind of education?
Well, and that's... Well, yeah.
You know,
but
because they see it as like a college degree. We see it as life experience and seeing things for what they are.
Right. Well, and this is something that I argue all the time. The education doesn't mean anything if you didn't actually learn something, and if you don't actually apply it in a proper way. You know, anyone can regurgitate information. Anyone can
copy
cheat
and
on a
paste
test.
from Wikipedia.
Yeah. Anyone nowadays, ChatGPT, I'm sure is writing a lot of essays and theses.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even, it doesn't mean anything
Yeah.
anymore. It
Yeah.
really doesn't, because there's so many ways to cheat to get that. And plus, if it actually means something, then why are so many people not working in the field they got their degree in?
Yeah. I'm not.
You know what I mean?
There we go.
Well, and
Yeah.
it's because they push the liberal arts degrees as opposed to the sciences.
Yeah.
They don't push the hard sciences on anyone anymore.
No.
It's all the liberal arts degrees, which that's fine. We still need people to fill those roles in those jobs, but like being an engineer pays more. The way the financial and monetary system is set up right now, it's to keep everyone middle class and below.
Yeah.
They don't want you breaking through and getting up into
No.
those upper echelon of the
That's why our
financial
pay
class.
checks are taxed.
Yeah.
The things we buy with those paychecks are taxed. They're taxed
it's
before
all
we even
theft,
buy
yeah.
them. And then once we own them, we're still paying taxes on them
it's all
later.
to keep us in poverty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank God we make the money that we do, because if we didn't,
We wouldn't survive.
right.
Yeah. Lots of crazy stuff going on.
Yeah. Positive thing though on that front is now that Trump will be in, and we'll get tax cuts and all that stuff all over again.
Hopefully.
Inflation should be under control and go back down.
Yeah.
We still get paid what we get paid.
I know.
Because of the inflation that went up.
Oh, and that was the other crazy thing that happened today. Biden signed this thing that basically said we couldn't drill in federal waters,
Right.
which would hold up our whole drill baby drill thing.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to try to get rid of it in Congress. But of course, he's just throwing one more thing in there to try to screw us over.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so sick of it. I'm sick of the politics. Just let us live our
never mind,
lives.
it does way more damage to dig for lithium and cobalt than it does to dig for oil.
We just want to live our lives. Big bread.
And oil is
Go on bike rides.
is the planet's like blood system. It reproduces itself.
Yeah.
Fossil fuel means it's going to run out. That's the whole reason
'Cause
that
it's-
term
yeah,
was
you're
coined,
right.
was fossil fuel, to
You're
make
right.
it sound scarce.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was 100 years ago.
Yeah. We're still pumping.
Fossil fuel, we're going to run out. 100 years ago.
You're telling me
You're sitting there telling me all the cars,
They lied to us,
everything
Tavis?
we've had.
our government has lied to us and given us
We're gonna run
misinformation.
out. We gotta use renewable energy. It is renewable energy because it reproduces itself. Thank you.
And we have more renewable energy in the form of nuclear now that
Yeah.
they're using to make aircrafts that they'll never give us access to because
Yeah.
it gives us too much power and less money in their pockets.
Yeah, no, they just want to kill us all at the end of the day.
Jeez, the passion. So anywho,
Yeah.
question everything. Ever. If you don't learn anything else from this episode, get your noodle thinking more than you normally would at this point in time.
Yeah.
So, thank you for tuning in. Thank you. We are excited for this year. We're coming back at you. And yeah, let us know what you think.
We will be launching Tether together in the near future.
Oh my gosh, just stop saying it. We'll do it eventually. No pressure. Okay. We'll talk to you guys soon then.
All right.
Thanks for listening. And follow us on socials. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Good evening, good afternoon, and good night.